Dynasty 22, Shashank the First, circa BCE 966. We have seen that Shashank had set up his throne at Bubastis, and it appears that he seldom extended his visits to the upper country of Patoris, though he followed the traditions of his family by living on the best terms with the Ramessides. He became a conspicuous person in the history of Egypt through his expedition against the kingdom of Yehuda. It is well known how Jeroboam, I don't remember how that's spelled, but that's closer than with the J, right? The servant of King Shlomo rebelled against his master after the prophet Ahijah had publicly designated him beforehand as the man best qualified to be his future sovereign. Jeroboam was obliged to save himself from the anger of the king and fled to Egypt to the court of Shashank I. Recalled after the death of Solomon, he was elected king of Yisrael, while the crown of Yehuda fell to Solomon's son Rehoboam in the 5th year of the latter king's reign, and probably at the instigation of the former guest, Jeroboam, Shashank made his expedition against the kingdom of Yehuda, which ended in the capture and sack of Jerusalem. The story of the campaign has been related on the walls of the temple of Yemen at Karnak, on the south exterior wall behind the picture of the victories of King Ramessu II, to the east of the room called the Hall of the Bubastitites. The spectator beholds the colossal image of the Egyptian sovereign dealing heavy blows upon the captive Jews. The names of the conquered towns and districts are paraded in long rows in their Egyptian forms of writing, and frequently with considerable reputations, each name being enclosed in an embattled shield. And so we have referenced 1 Kings 11, 26 through 40, 1 Kings 12, 1 Kings 14, 25 through 28. Rabeth, Ta'anka'u, or Ta'nak, Shenma'u, or Shunem, Baith Shenlau, or Bethshin, Re Habau, or Rahab, Hapere Ma'u, or Hapar In, Adulma, or Adulam, She'ua De, some missing, so they don't know who. Mahanema, Mahanaim, Ana, Gibeon, Baith, Huaran, Bethhoron, Gademoth, Kedemoth, Ajulan, Elon, Makathu, Megiddo, Adir, Yuda, Malik, Ha and Ma, Alana, or Eglon, Belama, Biliam, Zad, Pathel, some missing, some missing, Ma, Baith, Moth, Adameth, Ke Kale, Sha'uke, Socho, Baith Tapu, or Beth Tapua, Abelau, or Abel, Baith Zab, Nupal, Pa, something missing, Tashath, Pa Shel, Keth, Aduma'a, or Edom, Zalama, or Zalmana, something ending in Lala, something ending in the Za'u, something ending in Apen, Pa Amak, the Valley Plain, Amek, Au Zama'a, Asman, Anala, Pahakala, the stone of, Fathuishah, Arohalel, Aroer, Pahakala, the stone of, Abiroma, Shebeleth, Nagabele, Shebeleth, Uwarokith, Pahakala, the stone of, Ne'aba'ith, Dema, Zapeka, Ma, something missing, Ta, something missing, Ganaat, the garden, Panagabu, the Negeb, the south of Azam, something, Tashadna, Pahagalet, the stone of, She Na'e'a, Hapa, Panagabu, the Negeb of, Uwa hath Luka, Asha Hathath, Pahagali, the stone of, Hanene'au, Pahagalau, the stone of, Alekad, Adomamt, Hanene, Adoran, Pahagal, Teluan, Ha'e, Doba'a, Shalin, Nla, Ha'e, Doba'a, De Uathe, Hakelema, Alda'at, Ribith, Alda'e, Nebthath, Jurhema, Are, something missing, Ma, Adra, Paba'a, Mahega'a, something missing, Aruk, Frethma'a, Abir, Balrosa, Baith, Anth, Beth Anath, otherwise known as, Shar, something, Hata'u, Aromathan, Rama, Galana'a, Aroma, something missing, Rahath, something missing, Ra'ah, Ma, something missing, Ade, something missing, Julah, something missing. The speech with which the divine Yemen accompanies his delivery of the conquered cities to Shashank I contains not the slightest indication from which we might construct a background of the facts for the names of the conquered peoples, or for the historical events connected with them. The king built a sort of entrance hall which leads from the south, close by the east wall of the sanctuary of Ramathu III, into the great front court of the temple, seeing that the family names of the line of Shashank have been perpetuated from the builder of this modest hall down to several successors. We have a right to regard it as the memorial hall of the Bubastis, respecting the architect, and also the erection of the edifice of an inscription at Silsilis gives the following information. In the year 21, in the month Pani, in that time his majesty was in the capital city, in the abode of the great presence of the entity Horim-Ku, and his majesty gave command and issued an order to the priest of the entity Yemen, the privy councillor of the city of Horim-Ku, and the architect of the monuments of the lord of the land, Horim-Saf, whose skill was great in all manner of work, to hew the best stone of Silsilas, in order to make many and great monuments of the temple of the glorious father Yemen-Ra, lord of Thebes. His majesty issued the order to build a great temple gate of wrought stones in order to glorify the city, Thebes, to set up its doors several cubits in height, and to build a festival hall for the father Yemen-Ra, the king of the entities, and to enclose the house of the entity with a thick wall. And Horim-Saf, the priest of Yemen-Ra, the king of the entities, the privy councillor to the city of Horim-Ku, the architect over the house of King Shashank I at Thebes, had a prosperous journey back to the sea of Patoris, Thebes, to the place where his majesty resided, and his love was great towards his master, the Lord of Might, the Lord of the land, for he spoke thus: all the words shall be accomplished, O my good Lord. I will not sleep by night, I will not slumber by day. The building shall go on uninterruptedly, without rest or pause. and he was received graciously by the king, who gave him rich presents in silver and gold. The quarries of Silsilis have also furnished his architect with a fit opportunity immortalizing his royal master's memory. On a memorial tablet, the king is seen with his son Alputh in the act of being presented by the female entity Mut to the three principal entities of Egypt: Yemen of Thebes, Horium-Ku, Tmu of Heliopolis, and Ptah of Memphis. The inscription states, "This is the divine benefactor, the sun entity Ra, has his form. He is the image of Horium-Ku. Yemen has placed him on his throne to make good what he had begun in taking possession of Egypt for the second time. This is King Shashank. He caused a new quarry to be opened in order to begin a building. The work of King Shashank I of such a nature is the service which he has done to his father, the Theban Yemen Ra. May he grant him the 30 years Jubilee feast of Ra and the years of the entity Temu. May the kings live forever." To this, the king replies, "My gracious lord, grant that my words may live for hundreds of thousands of years. It is a high privilege to work for Yemen. Grant me, in recompense for what I have done, a lasting kingdom. I have caused a new quarry to be opened for him." For the beginning of a work, it has been carried out by Alputh, the high priest of Yemen, the king of the entities, and the commander-in-chief of the most excellent soldiery, the head of the whole body of warriors of Patoris, the son of King Shashank I, for his lord Yemen Ra, the king of the entities. May he grant life, welfare, health, a long term of life, power, strength, of old age, in prosperity. My gracious lord, grant that my words may live for hundreds of thousands of years. It is a high privilege to work for Yemen. Grant me power and recompense for what I have done. Alputh, the king's eldest son, died before his father. Already he had been invested with the title of chief priest of Yemen, to which was joined the position of commander-in-chief of the military force in the south. In a side inscription in the same place, he thus recalls himself to posterity. This was made by the chief priest of Yemen Ra, the king of the entities, the commander-in-chief and general, Alputh, who stands at the head of the whole body of the great warriors of Patoris, the son of the king Shashank I. In the hall of the Bubastatites at Karnak also appears the name of this high priest of the entity Yemen, appears beside the name of his father. Uasarken I, circa BCE 933. Save for a passing mention of his name, the monuments relate nothing about this son of Shashank. Of his two wives who are mentioned, one, Tashed Kansu, bore him a son called Tekaleth, who was his successor. His second son, Shashank, born of his marriage with the daughter of Pasebkhanu II of Tanis, and thus of royal descent, became the high priest of Yemen with the same rank as that held by his uncle Alputh. He is a commander-in-chief, but with this difference, that the whole Egyptian army was placed under his control, and not only that part stationed in Patoris. There seems to have been a contest between the brothers for the crown, the inheritance which, assured to the first by his right, the firstborn, was disputed by the second as the son of a royal princess. The claim, which was not to be admitted in his person, seems however to have been conceded by his descendants, the younger line of kings of the race of Shashank. Takaleth I, circa BCE 900, the monuments pass over the history of time in silence. His son, by his wife Karos, was the successor. Uasarken II, circa BCE 866, according to the monuments, he had two wives. The first had the name already well known to us of Ka Ra Ma'at. She was the mother of his firstborn son, Shashank, who, as crown prince, was at once invested with the dignity of a chief priest of Ptah of Memphis. In this character, he conducted the burial of the Apis bull, which died in the 23rd year of the reign of Uasarken II. His younger brother, Naromath Nimrod, a son of the second wife, Mutut Anks, was the next appointed overseer of the prophets and commander of the soldiery of Kinensu Aknas, that is, the Heracleopolis Magna. But his office was conferred on him of a governor of Patoris and a chief priest of Yemen of Thebes. His descendants succeeded their father in the hereditary office, a priest of Knem in Heracleopolis Magna, while the descendants of Prince Shashank, who was the high priest of Ptah and Memphis, inherited in like manner his father's office and appears as officiating high priest in the burial of several Apis bulls, with Uasarken II. The direct line of the kings died out, and a younger branch succeeded. Shashank II, circa BCE 833. This king was the grandson of Shashank, a high priest of Yemen, and thus belonged to a junior branch of the same royal family. The monuments are absolutely silent concerning his history. He was followed by Tekeleth II of circa BCE 800. Tekeleth II, circa BCE 800. Tekeleth II married Mer Mut Kero Mama Set Yemen Mut Hat, or is it Yimhat? I don't see the characters, so. A daughter of Naromath, high priest of Yemen. Their eldest son is designated in the inscriptions as high priest of the Theban Yemen and commander-in-chief of the military force of the whole land, and he was at the same time a petty king. He is the Uasarken, of whom so much is related on a long memorial tablet in the interior of the hall of the Ubastites. This account begins with the date of the 9th of the month Drahote in the 12th regnal year of his father. From it we learn that the prince Uasarken went to Thebes in his character of high priest of Yemen to enter in on the office of subjecting the Theban temple and its territory to a careful examination and restoring the offerings to the entity. When now had arrived the 15th year of the month Masore, the 25th day under the reign of his father, the lordly Horus, the godlike prince of Thebes, this heaven could not be distinguished. The moon was eclipsed, literally was horrible, for a sign of the coming events in the land, as it also happened for the enemies, literally the children of the revolt, invaded with war the southern and northern districts of Egypt. I have not the slightest doubt that the foregoing words have reference to the eruptions of the Ethiopians from the south and to the attack of the Assyrian power from the north. The rest of the inscription supposes the return, however temporary, of a period of rest for Egypt. The priest king of Uasarken used this respite to evince his devotion to Yemen and to his temple. The sacrifices were established in such a manner that certain sums of money were put aside for the maintenance of the offerings, as it had been done before in the case of Abydos. The last descendants of the line of Shashank had meanwhile subsisted in the position of petty kings in the divided Rome. Their names are Shashank III, circa BCE 766, Pa-Ma'e, circa BCE 733, Shashank IV, circa BCE 700. We owe our knowledge of these monarchs chiefly to the Apis Stela, upon which are inscribed references to their reigns and locality of their kingdom. If they no longer possess Bubastis, Memphis still remained in their lands. It was here that the sacred bull lived in the temple of Ptah Seker Yusker, and hence it was that the solemn translation of the deceased Apis was made on a car fitted with heavy wooden wheels to the Serapeum in the desert between the Arab villages of Abu Sir and Saqqara. Subjoined is a literal translation of the Apis memorial stones brought to light in 1850 insofar as they relate to the kings of the 22nd dynasty. 1. The memorial stone of the priest and seer of the Apis bull Snebeth, son of the Shed Nefer Tmu, and of his son, the Memphite priest Horeb. In the month occur on the first day under the reign of King Pa-Ma'e, the friend of the Apis entity in the west. This is the day on which this deceased entity was carried to the beautiful region of the west and was laid at rest in the grave, at rest with the great entity with Yusur, with Yenpu, Anubis, and with the female entity of the netherworld in the west. His introduction in the temple of Ptah, beside his father, the Memphite entity Ptah, had taken place in the year 29 in the month Pa'afi in the time of King Shashank III. 2. Memorial stone of the high priest of Memphis, Pet Essa. In the year 2, the month Mekher, the first day under the reign of King Pa-Ma'eh, the friend of the great entity Apis in the west. This is the day on which the entity was carried to his rest, the beautiful region of the west, and was laid in the grave, and on which he was deposited in the everlasting house, and in his eternal abode. He was born in the year 28, in the times of the deceased king Shashank III. His glory was sought out for in all places of Patamit, that is the Lower Egypt. He was found after some months in the city of Hashed Abat. They had searched through the lakes of Netho and all the islands of Patamit. He had been solemnly introduced to the temple of Ptah beside his father, the Memphite entity Ptah of the south wall, by the high priest in the temple of Ptah, the general of Mashu-Ashu, Pet-Essa, the son of the high priest of Memphis and the great chief of Mashu-Asha, Tekeleth, and of the princes of the royal race, Des-Bast-Per, in the year 28, in the month Pa'afi, in the first day. The full lifetime of this entity amounted to 26 years. 3. Memorial stone of the Memphite priest Harsa-Essa. In the year 2, the month Mekher, the first day under the reign of King Pa-Ma'eh, the friend of the great entity Apis in the west, the entity was carried in his rest in the beautiful region of the west. He had been solemnly introduced to the temple of Ptah near his father, the Memphite entity Ptah, in the south wall on the year under the reign of King Shashank. In the year 5 plus something, after they had sought for his glory, the full time of this entity amounted to 26 years. The tablet is dedicated by the hereditary prince. Here follows a string of titles in the priestly style: Harsa-Essa, the son of the high priest of Memphis and the chief of Mashu-Asha, Pet-Essa, and the eldest of the wives, and by Tekeleth, whose mother Ta-Tehor, and something missing S. 4. The memorial stone of the satrap of Pet-Essa and his sons of the Pef-Tot-Bast and Tekeleth. In the 28th year of Shashank, then follows a sculpture in which 3 men are seen before the bull-headed entity Apis Tamu. The first of them has on his head the fillet of a general of the Mashu-Asha. The last is adorned with the youth locks worn by royal and princely persons. Above and beside these persons are the following inscriptions: May he grant health, life, prosperity to the general of the Mashu-Asha, Pet-Essa, the son of the general Tekeleth. His mother is Des-Bast-Per, the son of the first and greatest of the princely heirs of His Majesty Shashank, the son of the king and lord of the land, Uwasarkin II, and to his venerator and friend, the high priest Ptah, Pef-Tot-Bast, the son of the general Pet-Essa, whose mother is Ta-Are, a daughter of the general Tekeleth, and to his venerator and friend, the priest Ptah Tekeleth, the son of the general Pet-Essa, and of his wife Horset. From these 4 inscriptions, it follows with certainty that under the reign of Shashank III, Pet-Essa and his son Pef-Tot-Bast ascribed to themselves the title of generals of the Mashu-Asha. The new Apis is sought for in all Lower Egypt, kind of like some of these Tibetan lamas or Hindu incarnations that they expect for, right? As to Upper Egypt, where Uwasarkin, the king and high priest of Yemen, maintained the kingdom until the time when the Ethiopian Tianke broke his power, for the inscription is completely silent. With regard to the Apis himself, the following results: obtained from the 4 memorial tablets now cited. He was born in the 28th year, the reign of the king Shoshank III at the city of Hashed Abad in Lower Egypt. Months passed by before he was discovered. On the 1st of Pa'afe, in the 29th regnal year of the king, he was solemnly introduced in the temple of Ptah of Memphis. After a life of 26 years, he was buried in the Serapeum of Memphis on the 1st of Mekher in the 2nd year of the reign of King Pa-Ma'eh. His death must therefore have happened 60 days earlier, that is, on the 20th of Athyr. Supposing him to have lived 26 complete years, as the inscription expressly testifies, his birth must have fallen on the 20th of Athyr in the 28th regnal year of King Shoshank III. In that case, about 10 months and a half would have elapsed until his introduction into Memphis on the 1st of Pa'afe in the 29th year of the reign of Shoshank III. And this should suffice to point out that some of the New Age ideas about the zodiacal ages kind of fall apart, because some of the strongest times of what we're expecting here, what the age of Aries is the peak of the bull cult in Africa, and yeah, I mean, there's other examples, but that's what we're looking at here.